Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are joined by Florent Lebon. He's a professor, associate professor at the University of Burgundy. His main research is understanding the link between neural processes underlying motion, so things such as movement preparation, mental simulation, and action language. His main research is focused on the effects of motor imagery on motor learning, performance, and rehabilitation after peripheral and central injuries. I've read a lot about visualization. I've heard a lot also on the media. For example, I remember Djokovic when he was losing to Federer at the Wimbledon final. He was match points down and he visualized himself holding the cup, and then he came back and won the trophy. So there's a lot on social media with regards to visualization. So the purpose of this interview is to get to know a little bit more about Florent's work and if visualization is as strong as we believe it to be. So Florent, thanks a lot for coming. Did I miss anything about you? You have...
No, you did all good. Thank you for the invitation.
Perfect. Thanks for coming here. And just to start things off, what work have you been previously involved with and what are you currently involved in?
So since I joined the university, my research topic was on motor imagery and the benefits of motor imagery on motor learning and motor performance and the integration of motor imagery for rehabilitation. Then I switched a little bit to covert actions. So it's all the actions that you don't see, but that you engage the motor cortex, like motor planning, motor preparation, action language. And I tried to understand the link between this covert action, so how the brain works and how is it useful for the learning.
Okay, great. So there was a lot of technical words there. So let's break it down for the listeners. The first word, one of the difficult ones you said was motor imagery. So in simple terms, how would you define motor imagery?
So motor imagery, it's the mental representation of a movement without doing it. So it's the ability to represent yourself or someone else, to visualize it or to feel the movement of a movement.
Okay, and where do action language come into this?
So action language, it comes to different forms. So you can read action verbs, you can hear people talking about actions, and you can visualize or see on the books or talk about movement. So action language, it's a kind of a new process in the research of cognitive neuroscience, where you try to integrate the language process and the motor learning.
Okay, so how would someone put this into practice? For example, if in my head, I'm doing an activity and I'm saying go, or faster, stronger in my head, does this count as action language?
Kind of. It's kind of self-motivation. And we know that when you talk, when you give a speech, including action verbs, you activate the motor cortex.
Okay, and what could be a few action verbs that you're talking about? For example, if I'm giving a speech.
Yeah, so you can go for go faster or move forward and push stronger, these kind of verbs. And it's kind of related to the motor imagery, because when people hear a verb or hear a word, they create implicitly this representation in the brain. So it's kind of close to imagery, visualization.
Okay, and all of this action language, mental simulation, so for example, visualizing the actions, this is all to do with neuroplasticity, right? So to help you get better at what you're doing in real life. Did I understand this correctly?
True. So neuroplasticity is all the mechanisms within your brain that helps you to improve your performance. So your brain modulates its activity to be better. So the neuroplasticity, it's all the mechanisms that helps you to be better.
Okay, and most people that you focus with, are they athletes or the elderly? Have you got like a target population? And what exactly are you trying to help them improve? Is it sport activity or daily activities such as walking, for example?
So it really depends on the research topic. But at the sports faculty, for sure, I study with sportsmen in the field of activity. So we try to improve their own performance, but we can also study individuals that just come to the university, like they are adults, healthy adults, and try to understand the mechanism within the brain. Or we can also work with the elderly, trying to understand what's the difference between the young and the old participants.
Okay, great. So a lot of people that listen to this podcast, they like to do calisthenics, so body weight training. So I don't know if are you a sportsman yourself? Is this what you got you into this?
I used to do track and field, decathlon.
Oh, nice. So would you have any tips for some people doing sports, for example, in gymnastics, and they want to get better at, I don't know, like the human flag or a handstand, or just to get better, stronger, more reps in the gym from your research?
Yeah, true. What we know at the moment, it's true that the main training to improve is with reps. So you have to do actual reps. But now we know about motor imagery and other kind of study that you can decrease the number of actual repetition and do also some visualization of the movement, and you will reach the same objective, the same performance. It's just a matter of balance between actual repetition and imagined repetition. For example, if I have a training with, I would say, 90% of actual repetition and 10% of imagined repetitions, you will obviously get the same performance at the end. And the advantage, it's as you do less actual repetition, you have like lesser risk to get injured. Because when you imagine the movement, you don't move. So you don't have such engagement of the body.
So first of all, how much imaginary imaging can I do? What's the highest percentage I can go up to not lose performance? So can I go up to 50-50?
It's a tricky question. It's a tricky question because it might depend on the movement you want to improve, and also it might depend on the content of the imagery. If you don't do the imagery right, you get less chance to have the benefits. But I would say you can go up to 25%, 20% of imagined movement and keep the rest for actual movement. And you will see a good improvement in your performance.
Okay, so say, for example, someone is doing sets in the gym and they are doing, I don't know, three sets for every muscle group. How could they put this into practice? What should they?
So you could within one set, if you have maybe 5 or 6 repetitions in one set, you could do first the actual repetition so that you can keep in memory the feeling of the movement, and then for the 2 remaining trials, you can imagine the movement. So if you want to improve your strength, the best practice for imagery is to feel the movement as if you're doing it. Like you try to feel the muscle contraction and trying to feel the tension in the muscle. It's called also internal imagery. It's the best practice.
So say, for example, I can do 10 or 12 pull-ups. You would recommend going to 8 pull-ups, for example, or 10 pull-ups, and then the last two, just should I stand up or should I sit down? Or
So it's best to be in the same position so that you have the whole situation in memory, and you can try to repeat in your head. Try to feel as much as you can as if you were doing it, and then take a break and keep going with the reps.
okay, and should I, with my eyes closed or with my eyes open, and should I do the movement or should I just be completely still when I do?
About the eyes, I think it doesn't matter because it's just about how you can concentrate. And if it's better for you to close your eyes, just keep it closed. Or if it's easier for you to see yourself, just keep your eyes open. And usually when you imagine a movement, you don't move. So I would say when you just imagine, just don't move and focus on the feeling of the movement.
And so for people that are wanting to build muscle, for example, will decreasing, so is this imagination, is it only to improve the overall performance of the move that you do in the future, or does it also help you still get the same amount of muscle growth for less volume?
It's a good question. When you imagine a movement, since you don't move, you won't increase your body mass. That's for sure. Since you don't move, you don't increase the number of fibers in your muscle. So if you want to do hypertrophy, hypertrophy, don't do motor imagery. But if you want to increase your strength, then you can use imagery because you will activate the pathway between your brain and your muscle. So you will increase the neural network. And it's a great component of strength increase.
Yeah, because I came across one paper which found that just doing a whole session in your imagination, I don't know if you've seen this paper, but their strength increased. So I'm not sure about the actual muscle size, but the strength, just doing a whole session in their heads, they got a similar sort of outcome as the people doing the bench press. The paper was called Benefits of Motor Imagery Training on Muscle. No, not this one actually. It was called Strength Gains by Motor Imagery with Different Ratios of Physical to Mental Practice. Have you heard of this paper?
Yeah. It's 2011. That's right. That paper. So
Correct.
they compare the combination of physical practice with motor imagery, and they have a different ratio of actual and imagined movement. And at the end, I think the conclusion is if you have 25% or 50% of imagery, you can still have an increase in strength compared
Amazing.
to 100% of actual training. That's right.
Great.
So that's the power of the brain. Yeah.
Amazing what the brain can do when you set your mind to it.
Definitely.
So the paper that I mentioned before, Benefits of Motor Imagery Training on Muscle Strength, that is your paper. So this was basically what you've talked about earlier on, right? So looking at putting in imaginary training between sets. This one was between sets. So I had two groups. One group who was doing motor imagery during the sets. And the other group, the control group, they did the same amount of actual practice, but between the sets, they just did nothing else than chit-chatting between each other. So cognitively, it was the same amount of implication, but they didn't talk or they didn't imagine any movement. And we saw for that study
It was 12 sessions, 3 sessions per week. And we found that both groups increased their strength because they both did actual training, but the motor imagery group increased further their strength, especially for the lower limb. So we discussed about it, and we found that it was the motor imagery helped the motivation and the technique of the movement, in addition to the increase of neural network between the brain and the muscle when you imagine.
Amazing. Because I thought that in order to get stronger, you need to always grow muscle, but you can get stronger by just making the neural network. Is it more? What's the term?
Definitely.
Make it more stronger.
Yeah, definitely, because in the first weeks of actual training, you won't see any muscle increase. You first see the neural factor increase, and it's the reinforcement between your brain and your muscle. So it's more optimized to use your muscle. So that's what motor imagery do.
Okay, so I'm guessing it's got many more applications outside of sport. For example, maybe people that have broken a leg, they could try and use motor imagery to gain the strength back. Is this something they could do?
Yeah, sure. I did a couple of studies with patients, especially one with a surgery of the cruciate ligament in the knee. So these kind of people, they have to get surgery. And when you get surgery, you can't move at a certain point. And we used motor imagery to help them recover faster. And we showed that when you use motor imagery, so you get better to activate your muscle. So the shrink, you can't help the shrinking of the muscle, because when you imagine, you don't activate the muscle per se. You activate the pathway between your brain and your muscle. And for these patients, it helped them to recover faster. So when you can't do it, just imagine it.
So before going to bed, for example, people could just imagine going for a walk.
That's an option. That's an option, but it might not be the best time to do the imagery.
Well, when would be the best time, in the gym or during the day?
True, you're right. But like the best time would be during the gym when you do the actual sets of training, and if you can do it. Studies show that the imagery process is better at the late morning and in the afternoon, because there are variations in the cognitive process in the brain, and you are more performant in the late morning and in the afternoon compared to early morning and compared to evenings.
That's cool to know, because some people say you should go to the gym early morning as soon as you wake up, but I don't like it. So it's good.
Yeah, but I would say when you can do it, just do it. Okay, don't wait 11 a.m. to do the motor imagery. If you go to the gym at 8 a.m. in the morning, just do your practice and then combine it with imagination. That's also useful.
Cool. And what studies are you currently doing? Where do you see your work developing into which areas in the future?
So I have many collaborations, like national or international, and I would go for one example. I think it's really cool. It's the link, the relationship between language and imagery, and trying to understand what's going on in the brain when people imagine a movement and when they read a movement. Is it the same representation? And at the end, can you use language to increase your performance, your motor performance, and can you use language for rehabilitation.
So it's sort of a comparison between visualizing and using
Yeah,
language.
yes, it's the comparison and trying to understand the close relationship. Is it a similar process or is it completely different? And trying to understand what's going on. For example, we studied people called aphantasia. So these individuals, they are not able to generate a mental image. And it seems that these individuals, they can't also activate the brain when they read the verb, like an action verb. So it seems that the process between imagery and language, it's quite close.
That's interesting to hear because I think I have aphantasia because I've read about this, and when I have dreams, for example, I only most of the time only have words, so I don't have.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of hard.
just come to Dijon and we will test you and we will see if you have aphantasia or not.
So you have tests for that.
Yeah, definitely. We can do easy tests and we have tools to check for that.
Okay, but for example, if you tell me to visualize an apple, I just don't really see anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be that. Yeah, true.
But yes, I can get like an odd flash, but like some people they say, oh, I see an apple just as real as reality, or when people have dreams. So that's always been confusing for me because I have dreams, but it doesn't seem like there's a big difference.
That
But,
bright. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it might be a form of aphantasia. Yeah, true. So maybe I could send you a questionnaire, and you tell me if you have if you are able to generate visual image or the feeling of the movement.
Please do. I'll be interested to take part. That'll be very cool. So, in what other areas of life can visualization help? Can it, in every sort of area, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. If you have to, like on daily life, you just need to find your path. You get lost. You just imagine yourself in the map, trying to go around the streets. So it's a kind of a visualization. Or maybe people in art, they use a lot this kind of visualization. The musicians, they use it a lot. Maybe in architecture, when they have to think about of a building, they use it a lot. So everyone in daily life can use such visualization. Definitely.
I have one friend who sort of visualizes how he would live the next day if he was someone who he wants to become. So, for example, he if he wants to become a millionaire, before going to sleep, he'll imagine how a millionaire would live their life, or how a businessman or a banker.
Yeah, that's the power, I guess, of imagination. You can see yourself in any situation, even if you have not lived this situation. That's the great power of the mind.
And what got you into this topic? Why did you decide to study this?
Which one with the
Just motor imagery in general, and
so what the main remark I have when I present my results, it's we don't know what people imagine, and it's true because at the moment we don't have the tool, the technology, just to see on the screen what people imagine in their brain. So I guess the next step, if I have all the money and all the people to work with, is to try to develop the technology to try to visualize and to see what people do in their brain when they do the motor imagery.
that's a
That
bit
would be really
scary.
cool.
That would be a bit scary to be able to get everything people are thinking at any moment. Okay, great. So moving on, I saw one paper similar related to what we're talking about is that it says that we are stronger with our eyes open. I think it was. Let me just double check. Have you looked into this? If we are stronger with our eyes open or closed when we're doing exercise?
So yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about that, and I think it doesn't matter. It really depends on how you feel when you have your eyes closed or open. So it really depends on yourself, and if it's easier for you to do the movement the eyes open or the movement the eyes closed, just do it as you feel it. I
Yeah,
think it doesn't mind.
because I feel a lot stronger when I keep my eyes closed, actually. So
Yeah,
it's sort
it
of,
really depends on the participant, on the individual. So if it's easier for you to keep your eyes closed and imagine the movement, just do it like that.
great. And do you have any potential books you could recommend to people on this topic?
So there are there are a lot of like papers, like scientific papers about the benefits of motor imagery, like the one you said we did on the benefits of motor imagery on strength. There are also there are not that many books about the benefits, and I think it's a good idea for me to write a book on that, because when I teach to my students, when I give talks to the rugby coaches, it's always the same question: what should I do? What should I not do? But so it's a good point. I should write a book on that.
Please do, and have lots of tips so we can all learn.
Definitely.
And so you've been, I think in your profile it says that you've been in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, I had the chance to go to New Zealand to work with Cathy Stiner and Winston Biblo at the University of Auckland. So it was part of my postdoc. So when I finished my thesis in Lyon, I spent 1.5 years in New Zealand. So I had the chance to do my research on the motor imagery over there, but I also the chance to discover the country, and it's really beautiful. I would recommend to go there just to visit. It's really beautiful.
Maybe a bit cold.
Not that cold, actually. It's really it depends if you are in the north or the South Island, but the weather it's pretty nice.
And so you did your undergraduate degree in Burgundy, or where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the north of France, close to Belgium, in a city called Valenciennes. And I did my high school over there. I started university. Then I moved to Lyon to do my master degree and my PhD. And then when I got my PhD, I did my postdoc in New Zealand. Then I had the chance to go to California to do another postdoc at the University of Berkeley with Richard Ivory. And after a few months, I got the job in Dijon at the University of Burgundy.
Amazing. And Valenciennes, is that in the Nord-Pas-de-Calais, or which municipality
Yes,
is it?
it's in the north, close to Belgium.
Okay, so do you have your own dialect as well there?
Kind of, yeah. If I talk to people with the north accent, they might struggle to understand what I'm saying.
No, because there's a famous French film called Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah, that's my country.
Ah, nice. Yeah, highly recommend this film. It's
Yeah, definitely. And I would recommend to visit also the north of France. Up there, it's quite cold, but people are really nice and warm in the heart, as we say.
nice. Okay, so talking about books, have you got just a favorite book outside of this topic, which seems to be very niche? So have you got, it could be fiction or non-fiction. Has there been any book which has just inspired you?
Inspired. I read a lot of books, and I always try to find books outside of my research area. So I try to read book on sociology, the sociology of the north of France. I try to read thriller just to improve my imagination. And I try to read history books, try to understand what's going on back in times and to understand what's going on, how we are now. So, and I try to read a little bit of philosophy because I think the Greek ancient, they understood a lot, and what we do now it's just the same but with good technology.
Yeah, so what are they called, the Stoics or the Greeks? I cannot remember. But one thing I know they did, I think, is they do this thing called negative visualization. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but before going to bed or waking up in the morning, they think of everything which could go wrong during the day. And then they think of all the negative things. And then after that, everything seems so good. Because they think, for example, oh, maybe I could cross the roads, get hit.
Yeah, I mean, a psychology effect, yeah.
Okay,
So there are papers of negative motor imagery. If you imagine the movement wrong, at the end, the behavior will be wrong. So you have to be careful with that. So.
Okay, so it seems like you're actively yourself trying to improve your visualization. Is this something you try and do to yourself and improve your visualization?
Yeah, I did it a lot when I did the track and field. So when you do the pole vault, you have to feel the movement and to see yourself doing the movement and the jump. So I used it a lot for my training, and now I kind of do the visualization for the research part and trying to understand what if I do such experiment. I try to imagine myself, okay, I might go in that direction, and does it answer the question I want to answer?
But now you've stopped track and field.
So now I stopped doing the track and field, but I coach the young athletes. For many years, I was the training coach, but now I'm the mental preparator. So I assist the athletes in mental preparation.
Okay, amazing. So to finish off, I like to ask this question to everyone. Maybe you thought about this, maybe not. What would you say, according to you, Florent, is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life?
Yeah.
It's a tricky question. And I would say that it's to behave like you want to be, and to live the present and think about how and where you want to be.
Okay, and it seems like you have a lot of projects for the future, so you've got a lot of...
I will be busy for a couple of years at least.
Yeah, so now you have your book coming out, and then you've got the next project to try and get people's thoughts visualized.
Definitely. We'll keep you in touch, and we'll let you know about that.
Thank you. So thanks a lot, Florent, for joining. I think people will get a lot of things to take away that they can apply in their training. I think this is something more people should be doing. So I really appreciate the time that
Thank
you gave
Patrick,
to be
for the
here.
invitation. Yeah, and if the auditors they have any question about motor imagery, about the research we do not hesitate to contact me.
And do you publish your research anywhere, or do you have like a blog or somewhere people can?
So we have like a website and the laboratory, and I have a personal website, and you can find it easily, typing Florent Lebon, and you'll find myself.
Okay, so we just type in your name and the University of Burgundy website, and then
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I found your paper initially through this website called Ergolog. I don't know if you have heard of it.
Not this one. I don't know about it. No.
Okay, because they were writing, so yeah, maybe you should have a look as well. Hopefully they didn't.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, then Florent. So maybe some people will contact you to find out a little bit more, but I really appreciate this. This is a lot of useful, especially for people who are maybe injured or just athletes. So lots of takeaway, lots to think about.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay,
Just keep
perfect.
imagining it. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.